I thought I'd do a little walk and talk this morning, walk around the property out here. It's not real cold, and so, hey, why not, right? And obviously what I want to talk about, although there's so much to talk about, particularly with regard to Trump and his ongoing trials and tribulations, and of course what's happening to Joe Biden, who I believe is probably being set up to be replaced. That's just becoming rather obvious by this point. But of course, what I really want to talk about is the big interview last night. I hope all of you have had a chance to watch it or will watch it. Tucker Carlson, of course, was in Moscow to interview President Putin, and it was about a 2-hour interview. It was a tad on the tedious side, I thought, because of the language barrier. But President Putin did a really good job, or tried to do a really good job, of giving some historical perspective to how Russia not only came to be, but how they came to be where they are now. And of course, if you don't know, Russia was at one time Holy Rus, R-U-S, and it has, for the bulk of its history, been largely a Christian nation. That is not to say everybody in Russia, there goes the cat, that is not to say everybody in Russia is a Christian. It is to say they are largely a Christian nation. And that fact, I believe, is lost on the rank and file American, unfortunately. But Russia was ruled, of course, for hundreds of years, since about the late 900s, by czars, and such as Catherine the Great and Peter the Great. And this was the way it was in Russia up until the early part of last century, of course, at which time was the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 1900s, and the last czar in Russia, which would be Tsar Nicholas II and his family, were brutally assassinated. And it was Nicholas and his wife and their daughters, their children. They were all assassinated at the hand of the Bolsheviks. And that began a decades-long dark history in Russia, of course, of being ruled by communist rule, which lasted up until, as you probably know, 1991. And now Russia has again returned to its Christian roots, its Christian heritage, and it is presided over by a Christian president. Contrast that with what we have right now here in America, if you will have an open mind and consider that. Now, I have detailed on this channel in the past why a lot of Americans have a negative view of Russia and of President Putin. I believe there are two main reasons for this I want to mention again briefly. One is because the basic position of the American government with regard to Russia is one of hostility and hatred, just abject hatred. And two, of course, the political bedfellow of the American government is the mainstream media, and they also share this narrative of this rage and venom and hatred toward Russia. And eventually you have to ask the question, why? Why do you feel this way toward this other nation? What have they done to us? And of course, the second main reason that people have negative views of Russia is based on really faulty theology, particularly eschatology. There is a segment within Christendom I've detailed before called Evangelical Fundamentalism, and this represents a large number of Protestants in America who subscribe to the belief, which was promulgated by the old Scofield Bible, not to get too deep in the woods here, that Israel, the geographical plot of ground in the Middle East, is somehow God's chosen land. That is nonsense. It's never been taught in Christianity. And that they believe that in 1948 they were regathered together, God's chosen people, you know, the people who rejected the Son of God. God's chosen people were gathered back to that land, and that's God's chosen land, God's chosen people. And one day, based on their faulty renderings of eschatology, which is a fancy word which means last things, they are taught, they get this from the Schofield Bible, they are of the belief that Russia is the great Satan and the big bear, Gog and Magog, and all this nonsense that one day is going to make war against Israel. Well, this is, as I say, utter nonsense. And of course, if you didn't know that already, you should have gathered greater knowledge of that last night in this interview. Why would a Christian nation invade a Jewish state? Because they're God's chosen people. No, they're not. Christians are God's chosen nation, not the geographical state of Israel. Now, it does have significant historical meaning to Christians. It is a land with holy places, but as I've detailed here before, there are holy places all throughout the world, not just in Israel. It is where Christ walked and the disciples walked, and for that reason, it is a very special land to Christians. But that's where it ends, folks. So hopefully, in watching this interview last night, it would successfully dislodge these misguided notions that are in the minds of a lot of Americans that Russia evil, Russia bad, Putin bad, the great Satan and the big bear and all this bullshit. That's all it is. Hopefully this interview served to reshape the narrative that so many people in America have toward Russia and toward Vladimir Putin. You have to ask yourself, if you fall into the camp of one who just automatically assumes Russia to be evil and Putin to be a bad guy, you have to ask yourself, if you agree with the sentiment that we are ruled and lorded over in America by liars such as Joe Biden, and we are, and such as the Hillary Clintons in the world who belittled Tucker Carlson for having the gall to go over there and interview Putin. If you believe your government is lying to you, and it is, if you believe every word that comes out of the mouth of Joe Biden, if it's coherent enough, is an unmitigated lie, and it is, then to be consistent, would it not follow that if you're an American, that your government and your president is lying to you about Putin as well? Wouldn't that just be consistent? That they're lying to you about Russia as well? You remember the old saying, question everything? It's time to do that. If you're still on board with this narrative that Russia bad, Putin bad. Tucker asked Putin last night about the Nord Stream pipeline, and Putin just kind of smirked because Tucker asked him who blew it up. Putin knows who blew it up. Tucker knows who blew it up. You should know who blew it up. I certainly know who blew it up. It was the American president, who told us, it is on record, easy to find on social media or YouTube, what have you. He told us he was going to do this, and he did it. And Putin said it was the CIA. And he's right, it was the CIA. Think about this a minute. The Nord Stream pipeline, which was supplying energy to Eastern Europe, it had a negative effect on Germany, which is our ally, supposedly. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? We are swimming, ladies and gentlemen, in lies. If you agree that Russia is evil and Putin is evil, then you are in league with Hillary Clinton. You're in league with Joe Biden. You're in league with the powers that be in American government, the Mitch McConnells of the world, the Chuck Schumers of the world. You're in bed with them, at least philosophically. Do you think maybe it's time to update your files? I'm encouraged that as I do this video this Friday morning, it's between 9 and 10 o'clock. I'm going to finish it and go upload it. I'm encouraged by the fact that as I say these words, this interview has been seen by over 100 million people. That's good news. And as I posted on Twitter earlier this morning, hopefully this will dispel the false narrative being put forth by the American government and its evil leadership, and it will destroy this narrative and the mainstream media, and it will destroy the prevailing Russia narrative. Joe Biden wants you to believe Russia evil, Putin evil. Guess what? He's got it all backwards if you follow me. Putin detailed in that video why he went into Ukraine. If you listen closely, now you understand. Putin detailed in that video how many times he had been lied to about NATO, and he had received assurances and promises from American presidents that NATO would not expand any further than it already had. This was after the fall of the Soviet Union, when we had the opportunity to do a tremendous reset with Russia. They could actually have been at least an economic ally, but we forced them away into a BRICS alliance with other major economic powers in this world. But we didn't stop with NATO. We continued to go toward Russia, even to the point of considering bringing Ukraine into NATO, just to the south of Moscow. Think about that for a minute. NATO on the doorstep of Russia. Do you understand now why that made Putin nervous? How would you feel if China made an alliance with Mexico and started setting up camp on the southern border? Of course, they'd have to move some people out of the way. Then again, maybe they're part of the people, I don't know. But you'd be nervous at that, and you wouldn't want us to tolerate that. You would not want that aggression to stand. You would want your government to do something about it. But somehow, we can continue encroaching toward Russia, although we promised repeatedly we would not, until Putin had to do something. And he did. And he should have. And he detailed in the interview about how neo-Nazis who maintain the philosophy of Hitler have set up camp in Ukraine. They are in the government of Ukraine, and to him, this is not acceptable, nor should it be to you. This is what we fought against in World War II, which, by the way, Russians refer to as the Great Patriotic War. You do understand, of course, that Russia also fought against Hitler, and they suffered millions of losses. But they fought against the same evil we said we were fighting against. They were ostensibly our allies. So many sides of the story we never heard in American education. This is why we have to question everything. Vladimir Putin is, he's not a perfect man. And I went into this interview with an open mind. Tucker Carlson asked some good questions. He asked some tough questions, as he should have. Putin needs to be asked tough questions, like any politician should be. But I thought he made a good accounting of himself and explained why what is happening, and explained his side of the story that so many Americans are simply either not privy to or not interested in, because they have this preconceived narrative, of course, that Russia is evil, so we're not going to give them any time to talk at all. That shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case. I've detailed on the channel before how we had a tremendous opportunity after the fall of the old Soviet Union, which Russia is not. We had a tremendous opportunity to reset our relationship with the new burgeoning Russia, the renewed Russia, and actually the whole cotton-picking world. And we blew it. That's what Russia wanted. We could have at least been economic allies. But we are so prone to war in America anymore. All we know is war. All we know is hostility. We don't do diplomacy anymore. We just go in with guns blazing. Gee, I wonder why. I really hope a lot of you that watch this video will consider what I'm saying, and will reconsider if you do still maintain these wrong ideas about Putin and about Russia. I hope you'll consider some of the things I'm saying, and I hope you'll investigate it to see if what I'm saying is true. I challenge you to do that. There's two presidents in play here, Putin and Russia. Putin and Biden. One of them is evil to the core. It's up to you to decide which one we're talking about. I hope this interview does a lot of good in changing some minds, and that the American people will circumvent the narrative put forth by their government and the media, the Western media. I applaud this effort by Tucker Carlson. It was wonderful what he did. That was real journalism right there. And the Democrats and the ruling class in America are furious with him that he would have the nerve to go and sit down with Putin and actually have a conversation. Nobody should be mad at that. That's a good thing, right? That's journalism. Hillary Clinton called him all kinds of names, and all I can say to Hillary Clinton is, go away, you bitter old hag. That's all she is. All right, those are my thoughts. Let me go get this uploaded. Everybody have a great Friday. Talk to you soon.